Well, welcome to Faith Over Breakfast. My name's Andy Littleton, and I'm sitting with my very cheery friend, Eric Deepen, from the Village Church in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm from Mission Church in Tucson. And Eric, you just showed up cheery as a lark today. It was good to be with you, man.
Hey, I don't know if cheery as a lark comes across on today's podcast, but I
can see it.
I am cheery.
Yeah. And somehow cheery Eric is not talkative Eric.
No.
Yeah. So I fill that void with stories about our trip to Lake Charles to do hurricane relief and some thoughts.
Yeah, it's really good, and I think it's just a fun story to hear how God kind of pieces things together and how you were able to help a little bit and then head on home, and it was a bonding experience for your community in a sense, a couple people from your community together.
Yep. And then when reflecting a little bit on that in light of what our churches have experienced during COVID of not having bonding experiences. Yeah. So anyway, tune in. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you.
Is that our intro music?
Welcome to Faith Over Breakfast with Eric Deepen and Andy Littleton.
Man, you're awake today.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm going on vacation in 2 days.
Oh, is that what it is?
So it's like full day Tuesday, half day Wednesday, and I'm off on vacation.
Oh, what are you doing for vacation?
Simply headed down to Sierra Vista with my wife for 4 days.
Dang, it's hot.
Yeah, it's 10 degrees cooler than down here.
Yeah, I mean.
And there's a hot tub. That's where I'm going.
Oh,
sit in the hot tub.
Sierra Vista.
Yeah, we found this little house.
Yeah.
That we really like, and it has a nice big hot tub. And
yeah.
We buy food and we don't leave for 4 days.
So that's your favorite kind of, what's your favorite kind of vacation? Is that it? Just I sit in a room for 4 days?
It depends on how much money I have.
Okay, what if you had a lot of money?
Then I want to go
sit in a bigger room
to a big bustling city.
Oh, okay.
At a time when there's no political strife.
Uh-huh.
And I can wander around and enjoy good food and go out onto the ocean and enjoy the cool breeze and be out and about and enjoy different foods, venues, and experiences, and then have a good chunk of time where I'm just sitting reading a book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
When I know that there's nobody who can bother me, nobody can call me, nobody knows me in the city.
Yeah, that is nice.
Yeah. I'm just me and my wife.
Yeah.
Or me and the kids.
Yeah. Cool.
So but this one is, less expensive.
Yeah.
And
Are kids going?
No, they're not. Ashton has school, and Elliot decided he just wants to stay home.
Nice.
He's got school too, so
yeah,
they didn't really want to be doing school on vacation in a different place. So
yeah, it would be kind of weird.
Anyway, so yeah.
Okay, so you're all fluffy tailed or whatever, getting ready for vacation.
Yeah, I don't know. I woke up today, and actually, I was in a little bit of pain because my plantar fasciitis started acting up because I didn't stretch before I went running around bases, and that really hurts. So,
shoot.
Yeah, that was part of my resistance to playing baseball.
Oh, really?
So I have pretty severe plantar fasciitis, yeah.
Dang.
It's really frustrating.
Yeah.
But anyway, regardless of that, you and I hung out this weekend.
We did.
We played a little baseball, excuse me, and we sat in, it was a 5-hour meeting, 6-hour meeting.
Is that all it was?
It
seemed longer than that.
Yeah, I mean, it was both theoretically from 8 o'clock till, I don't know when you guys left. I left at 2.
Yeah, around 3.
So 7 hours.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long meeting, but you only have them twice a year.
Yeah, that's fine.
And since you're a denominational church now.
A denominational man.
I think it's Andy Littleton from Mission Christian Reformed Church.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
It's what it is, though.
Well, yeah.
That's a reality.
The way it will be said. I did look it up. I was just curious. I put Mission CRC and it popped up. I was like, interesting.
Yep, there you are.
But yeah, right. So that's what happens. You join a denomination or you work with other people, and
you gotta have these weekends, and
then you gotta do it. But I'm good with it.
That's awesome.
That's what we signed up for.
Yeah. So we didn't have a podcast last week, and the reason we didn't have a podcast last week is because you, along with I guess a few people from your church,
four other people, drove
to
Lake Charles, Louisiana,
where there is a lot of destruction.
Yeah,
and flooding.
Yeah. So I'm still. You are wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. I am a little sleepy, and I think I'm still recovering a little bit from this trip. It was good. It was, but yeah, it was long and kind of road warrior-ish. And then when we were there, it was kind of work, figure things out. And then, I got home, had a day and a half, and then into this day and a half of classes of the Arizona, El Paso churches meeting and figuring things out. So, it's only Tuesday. That all ended Saturday, but Sunday was restful. Yesterday, I had plenty to do.
I have to say, because you're usually taking pictures of me, but most people don't get to see the classic picture of you. And you've got a cubby hat on.
Cubbies, yeah.
And you got a bandana around your neck for your COVID protection.
COVID in the Old West.
And then you have a black T-shirt on with an old school 80s Indian print, like turquoise and salmon and yellow, like what do you call it? Pocket. Yeah. So you got you look like a radio DJ.
Yeah.
You've got that kind of DJ vibe going.
Yeah, every once in a while I walk out the door and I think this is my pastor outfit. And that's how I feel today.
That's awesome.
This is my pastor outfit. I've got green shorts on as well. You can't see that.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just like, but actually this is a top 5 outfit for me. I like this.
Top 5, and I noticed this at classes. Is that you got a little bit of the tail coming out in the back, like a little bit of flare on the hair, like it's getting a little longer.
Hair flare.
Yeah. Are you going for a longer hairdo now, or are you just not?
I'm evidently going for something. I could have stopped a long time ago.
Has your wife said anything? She likes it? She doesn't? I
think she's into it.
She's into it? That's good.
Yeah. Signs point to that.
All good signs point to that. That's great.
Yeah. I think it's good. Yeah, I once made a really unfortunate comment in regard to my hair and my wife on the radio, so I have to be careful,
Yes.
I don't want to slip and say anything inappropriate on accident, which I once did. That's a story for another time.
Yes.
Many of you have heard it.
So let's go back to this Louisiana thing.
Yeah.
And you were going there because, one, a guy named John Simon, who's a pastor at your church, has a lot of connections in this particular town and area.
Yeah, so here I'll give you the story of it.
Give us the
last week on Tuesday, last week on Tuesday. Seems right.
Sure, because I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I showed up here for a podcast.
Wait. I'm trying to think here. We left on Saturday. So this is 2 weeks ago. Okay. 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, we had Faith Over Breakfast, and I did something in between, and I was driving over to our church because we meet at noon to discuss the sermon for the upcoming week. And as I was driving, there was a radio program, and they were talking about this hurricane, and honestly, I was a little bit tuned out. I was doing other things. I just happened to. I haven't been doing a lot of news radio lately, but I did that day. And I was driving over there, and a lady was talking about how they really needed practical things. People didn't understand. There was no gas to run the generators. The water supply was, they were having to boil everything. They really needed just some basics. And so I was kind of tuning in a little bit. And then they said at the end, okay, this is so-and-so, live from Lake Charles, Louisiana. And I went, Lake Charles? That's where John just was, because he'd gone and visited his family. I went, oh, that's where John's family's from? And it kind of hit me like, oh, shoot. I got to the church and kind of Googled it and saw these pictures of devastation, and I brought it up to John when he came. I said, hey, Lake Charles, that's where your family's from, right? And what's going on there? And he said, oh, man, it's bad. All my family's all evacuated. And I said, is this something we should respond to? I mean, we went to Houston after the hurricane the last time, and we were going with the mind of going later rather than immediately, and being part of the support that walked with folks later on. But I said, should we be, this is your family's hometown, man. Is there like a home church? He said, oh yeah, there's a church my family's gone to for a long time. And I said, are you interested in that? And can you reach out to them and see? And oh yeah, I am. So I think John didn't know what he was getting himself signed up for when he said he was interested in that. I think what he thought was, no, we'll enter into a process through which, in the coming months, we'll have a lot of discussions and plan a nice little trip out there to Lake Charles and check in on folks. But no, I was talking about like now. That's what I was talking about. And so he called, and the pastor said, sure enough, we need bottled beverages and stuff. So I kind of bugged him. I said, what have you heard? And he said that. And I said, if we're really going to help them with this, we need to go like in 2 days. And because, in a couple months, they'll have bottled beverages, or the water supply will be back. And he goes, oh yeah, right. Huh? I said, so, when could you go? He goes, oh, well, I could rearrange a couple things. All right. Let's leave Saturday morning, which to me felt like a delay. And so we put some calls out there, threw something on the Facebook page, got 3 other people who are able to go. One who's a aircraft mechanic who's coming, he's going back to work, but he's been laid off, and so he still was. And then, let's see, Abby at our church, she had a more flexible schedule, was able to take it off. Tabitha, she does caretaking for her family right now, but was able to step away from that for several days. And she had a truck, so I called her specifically and said, hey, we need to be able to haul things. And so, yeah, Saturday morning of that week, we went flying out of here at about, 6:45 a.m. and we were on the road for 18 hours, including stops.
And how much supplies did you actually bring?
Well, so yeah, that leads into another interesting thing. So we briefly talked about how if we were to haul truckloads of beverages and stuff, it's for 18 hours got us to Houston. And so that was, like I said, on the road and stops, but we would use way more gas, heavier vehicles. So we took 2 trucks and a trailer. So I reached out to some folks, found a church in Houston, called them and said, hey, could you buy stuff for us? And then we'll stop in and get it. And they said yes. They said they were interested in that. So we didn't have to buy the stuff, and we didn't have to haul it all the way from here. So we were able to just kind of...
Did you just like pick this place randomly, or did you know the people at this church, or how'd you make this connection?
So I emailed a guy in Houston who did not email me back, but I copied a couple, or I forwarded that email to a couple other people and said, hey, I reached out to this guy in Houston. If you have any other ideas, let me know. And these are, CRC leader dudes. And one of them said, hey, there's another pastor in Houston you might reach out to. He kind of has some history in responding to this sort of stuff. Great. I called him. He called me back. That's the one we ended up working with. So I'd never met anybody at that church, but there was a connection. And then we were rolling through Las Cruces. We got a great little cheeseburger in Las Cruces. And after we left, I said to John, we better get a hotel in Houston. We better call. We had a long stretch ahead of us, about half the day, but I said, we better call. And we got a text message from somebody at the church, and they said, hey, if you guys need a place to stay in Houston, my parents have a house there. And we said, oh, okay. And they said, well, let me know next week what you're thinking. And I said to John, I kid you not, we got this text right when he was going to call hotels. And I said, you better call them. I don't know if they understand what's happening here. So he called and he said, hey, we're like going to be in Houston tonight. And they said, oh, okay. So they called us back and said, yeah, actually it's perfect. My parents aren't even there. There's nobody there. You can have the whole house. And it turns out they had a bunch of family members in town who had left that, like right when we were calling. They left at noon, and they had just cleaned the house, and then they had anyway, I don't remember the whole deal, but nobody was home, but we were able to be let in. And, we had this like great house that accommodated all of us very comfortably in separate rooms.
Nice.
And even had a pool and stuff like that. So that worked. So we went, okay, we don't have to pay for a hotel. Sweet. And then we get to the church in the morning. So that was Saturday night. So we just went to service and we picked up the stuff. And then they had bought a great amount of stuff, more than we could carry. So we said, okay, let's get all this loaded up and get it down to Lake Charles. So we got all that loaded up. Lake Charles is another 2.5 hours away. So we loaded up, got it all down there, got the lay of the land, went to the church. The church everything is rough there. It's basically Lake Charles doesn't normally get direct hit by hurricanes. It's and you can tell that because there are 100-year-old trees down all over the place. And towns that get hit by hurricanes don't have 100-year-old pine trees.
Yes.
Right?
Right, that makes sense.
And so this was different. It was all wind. It wasn't storm surge because they're not directly on the ocean. But the hurricane hit Lake Charles, 154 mile an hour winds.
Oh, wow.
Which is insane. And so there were and as wind does, there are some structures that were just like fine, but then there were others that were just absolutely obliterated. But as we were driving in, we're probably about 20 miles out from Lake Charles, and you started to see that the billboards, the whole advertisement had been ripped off. And then all of a sudden we see a billboard, like the giant ones, let's say the 4 or 5 foot, maybe even bigger, wide, massive steel column, the big wind-rated ones you see along highways. We saw one that looked like somebody had taken it and twisted it and crumpled it and just threw it on the ground.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
And then you started to see more of those.
Wow.
And similar like signs. When we pulled into like the main area of Lake Charles, there was one large building facade, like the face of a shopping center, that was metal, that like pretty substantial, because it was, we were like right next to it. It had been utterly ripped off the face of this building. This is probably one with like 20 stores long, so a big structure. This whole metal face of it had been ripped off and was across the street.
Oh, wow.
And that was pretty crazy to see. And then there was one auto mechanic shop that was just it was just utterly obliterated. Like the cars were up on the lifts, but everything, like the lifts held.
Right.
But the whole structure was gone. It was
oh my
down.
Gosh. Wow.
It was the weirdest scene. And then so John's family's church, the awnings of they had these overhangs, kind of like you guys have out here,
Right.
but they went on off of all sides of the building. It had a pitched roof, and the awnings were just snapped off.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's like major, because those are the beams that go up over the whole roof that snapped. I don't know what, how they're gonna, saving the building is in question to me. I mean, maybe they can rebuild all that, but it's going to be a bear. And the pastor lives just down the street. He had 2 of these about 100-year-old trees that fell in his yard, like just feet from hitting the house, but the canopies were all in his yard. They didn't hit his house. 2 houses down, one of these giant 100-year-old trees just went smack, just demolished the house below it, just destroyed it, just right on top. And these big trees were down all over the place. Anyway, there were, like I said, there were homes that were fine. John's family's homes were generally okay. We sealed the roof of one of them while we were there because it had holes in it, and they hadn't come back. They were evacuated and staying away. And somebody told them their house was fine, which it generally was. But rain is still in the forecast, and if those holes in the roof, if it just leaks inside, it's gonna be bad. So hopefully we sealed it up in time, put tarps and wood strips to hold the tarps up on top of it. And then, but yeah, one of the houses just down the street from there, it looked like somebody had just walked up, a giant, and had grabbed the top of it and just ripped it in half, like you rip a muffin in half.
Right.
That was the house. And the top, though, nowhere to be seen. Like, I don't know where it was.
Wow.
Yeah, like maybe it was just in pieces all over the place, but it was just like, somebody just ripped the house in half. And so, yeah, it's bad. I mean, the businesses weren't open. We interacted with an older dude back in John's family's neighborhood, who he has colon cancer and needs regular medications, and clinics are closed. He can't drive anywhere, so he's just not getting any treatment. Just hoping. So we prayed with him, and he appreciated that. But at the same time, it's like, man, So anyway, that was, we discovered all that day one, powered back to Houston, where they had decided to get a U-Haul because it was like heavy to carry all these drinks. So we took they maxed the U-Haul, which I think was about 5 tons. So they filled it with more drinks and stuff. So the next day, and they sent somebody with us. So the next day we left in the morning with a U-Haul full of supplies and more beverages. So we're giving these to the church to give out to the community. And so there were some toiletries and stuff they threw in there that they had left over from the hurricane in Houston, actually.
Wow.
And then that was the day so then we trimmed tree out of the pastor's yard, which I actually didn't realize how big the tree was. The canopy was in his yard, and we were like, oh my goodness. And we started just hacking at it. And we were there for, I don't know, 4 hours or something, just hacking away at this tree. And I actually got through part of the canopy, and I looked and I realized that a basketball court away from me was the roots. Like, how like we had 4 hours of hacking at this tree, and we're not even,
it's going to be a long job.
Yeah, and we don't have a saw that's going to get anywhere. We're not cutting. We're not going to finish this. There's no chance. I didn't think we'd finish it, but I thought we'd. I didn't realize how big this tree was. You just couldn't see the rest of it from his yard, and it was 2 that had fallen together, and I didn't know that either. But we cleared his yard so he could move around. He's going to still have to hire somebody to finish it, and they've got tree crews going around. Unfortunately, apparently it was already happening. There's a lot of scammers that come in during these times, and they take deposits and leave because people are desperate. And so I guess that's a thing. There were signs up warning people about it. So that was, we did that our second day. Got back out of there, went and spent the night with John's aunt and his uncle, who his aunt lives in Lake Charles. She's evacuated in Houston. His uncle lives in Houston, so she was staying with him. And at this point, we're needing to go home. We'd been there about 2 days, And ended up, we forgot to bring back to the Houston church their dolly. We had it in my truck, and Houston is huge. So John's uncle's house is like an hour away from the church. And the house that was provided for us was 5 minutes away from the church, which is shocking, right?
Right.
Which is right where we needed to be. Really cool. And so I called the pastor and said, can I just buy you a new dolly and have it shipped to you? And I'll just keep this one. He goes, where are you? And I told him, and he goes, we have a church planter who lives right there, 5 minutes down the street. We go over to his place. He's picking our brain, and he's like, hey, I have all these doctors and nurses, but nobody's ever mentioned if there's any need for that in Lake Charles. And we're like, yes, actually, because downtown, there was a lot of relief work being done and meals being handed out, but out in like the like kind of the African-American neighborhoods, the like poorer neighborhoods, there was stuff going on, but not as much. And that's where we'd heard about this guy with the colon cancer. And we said, their clinics are closed and people are just, they're home. They're not looking, but they need checked in on from a medical perspective. And so it sounds like this guy and the other Houston church are going to be going back soon, and they're going to focus a little more on maybe checking in on the medical needs and taking a team. And we wouldn't have met this guy and had this conversation if we'd remembered to take back the dolly, right?
Right.
And there he was, just down the street. And then we had a great night getting to know John's aunt and uncle. And then we decided to power it home, and then we were thinking about how tired we were in this 18 hours, and so we thought, maybe we should just stop in El Paso. So we called the Missio Dei folks. We said, is there a place to stay? And Jeff from Missio Dei Church in El Paso just goes, oh, we've got rooms for all you. We got this ministry house. Come on in. So we had another place to stay on the fly, and we stayed in El Paso and had a donut and burrito in the morning and came home.
A donut and a burrito.
Well, the place was called Burrito.
Burrito.
And we did
brother.
Donuts and burritos.
That's hilarious.
Uh-huh. So, yeah, that's what we did.
There you go. That sounds like an adventure.
Yeah, it was an adventure. Got home midday Wednesday, had a few meetings I was a bit of a zombie for, and then there was Thursday, and then there was classes. There you go. That's what I did last week.
That was really cool.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, it was. And so, the interesting. So here's what could lead to a little bit of a back and forth conversation, perhaps. I thought, we've had this pandemic time. I haven't spent time with people outside of my family like that in a while. All of a sudden, 5 concentrated days with 5 people.
Plus people in Louisiana.
And people in Louisiana.
And you didn't quarantine after you came home.
No, didn't quarantine after I came home.
Not that that's bad. I mean, it's just
right.
What you didn't. Yeah,
right.
Sometimes that's a natural procedure nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like there was like when we went into places and there was all the masks where we weren't just total morons. But then again, we rode in the vehicles to get. At some point, you're like, look, we're
Yeah.
But the more interesting thing was that group of 5 had never spent time together before. And so what happens is you have a shared problem or project. You get to know each other. You see each other's, we're on no sleep, right? Like we saw each other's issues. They all got to watch John and I, bicker like an old couple, because John does not like to be, he doesn't like surprises. And, and this was like nothing's planned. So it's a real stretching event for John. Totally. And we're having to figure that out. But at the end of it, I thought it was so good. Like, we had the perfect team. Seriously. We had all the right roles. We had just, we couldn't have handpicked it better looking back. And we never would have handpicked this group. We wouldn't have. But it was so good, and we got to know so much about each other. It was just this, you see, like, this is what happens when you do something that matters together. You push through, you overcome obstacles, you learn about each other, you learn to have grace. And I thought, man, maybe it's just because of like the COVID time, but we need more of this. We need it doesn't, we went to Louisiana because it was where John's family was. It doesn't always have to be that intense, but the shared experience, the shared project, it's critical to feeling like you matter and feeling that other people have a lot to offer, and even sensing God's provision as a group, which we did. And it just made me think how much we need that. And then I was mentioning to you just before we got on, my buddy for my birthday handed me this book called Tribe.
Right.
Which is about, the need. He actually goes through Native American tribal societies and how they operated and what happened when they were kind of torn apart. And then he's a journalist who worked with vets and in war zones, and he saw that people did better when they were in conflict or war than when they had to come home and be isolated.
Right.
And he just worked out how even actually like mental health issues, like I guess post 9/11, like violence and mental health issues decreased kind of astronomically for a period of time, especially in New York, which there was some interesting stuff in the book. And it sort of, when I was thinking about this trip and how this wasn't a war zone, but it was this shared critical mission that we had, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know what is it at the Village? And how much do we need it? And what have you discovered of this? And I mean, I assume that's what's kind of bonded us together as churches, really, and how much we need it and how much we haven't had it lately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at first I think just your last comments are fascinating to me. So I was processing those and not your question.
Oh.
Is that the trauma, like emergencies kind of break through some of our neuroses.
Yeah.
And force us to come together for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't last. But
it doesn't.
But it produces a time of connection, and it seems to be something that's in our created nature, in our biology.
What this guy was suggesting was actually like these tribes that they always encountered trauma as a community. Every war affected the whole.
Yes.
It wasn't just, so he's saying that these vets, what they understand with their buddies, when they're out at war, like it's deep, it's shared trauma, shared experience, but they have one another and they do okay generally when they have that. And then they come home and it's harder to handle regular life because the community they come home to
isn't that way.
It doesn't share it. But when things have hit in the community, you've seen the community rally together like that.
Right. I think on a smaller way, in the way you experience, but also I just think from churches that tend to be more mission oriented, so they're pretty fine tuned on what they're doing and why they're there and what the purpose is, and so we all are part of the process and we all have something to do together. I mean, I think certainly at the Village, COVID threw that for a big loop, and you're like, whoa, what are we about? What's the mission? How do we do what we're supposed to be doing? We can't. We're all we're not together, and togetherness is a big part of who we are.
I think
doing this together.
We had that too. We really set out to do some things during COVID, but it was only because you couldn't invite everybody to be a part. We heard people say from our church, what are we doing? And we as kind of the staff were like, what are you talking about? We're doing all kinds of stuff. But the truth was they weren't involved. So even though they were funding it or being told about it, they didn't have the experience. We had this deep experience of we're still serving, we're getting it, we're doing some awesome stuff, but it's because only our staff team was the mission team that was, and nobody else was connected to
I
it.
would certainly say that was not a Village experience. We didn't, not leadership didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
I mean, we felt very disconnected.
Yeah.
And partly because it is all or nothing usually at the village.
Yeah.
So the leaders, we're all doing it together.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing it together, or we're not doing it.
Or we're not doing anything.
And we were a lot more isolated.
Right.
Our leaders were isolated. We weren't seeing each other except for Mark and I. So
right.
it was difficult that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think either way, you're right though, that there's something about being in something together and doing it, either short term like what you guys did where you're forced together to do something, or long term where you have rhythms of being together that are meaningful, like you're seeing the mission go forward. So I don't know.
I think there are a lot of folks in our church world and circles who disconnected for various reasons during this time, and I think their feeling of that is even more acute.
Sure.
Like I think, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that I just think it's a good thing to remember that, like, I think families feel more connected together when they all know what the mission is of the family, and there's something that they're doing together, no matter what it is.
Right.
There's meaning to doing stuff together, and for a purpose.
Yeah.
And then you get to know each other better because you're under pressure together. You're not just, always accommodating or doing your thing and I do my thing. But there's a kind of I think that's the thing that's, you talk about the military, like there's an identity there.
Yeah.
There's a purpose, there's a meaning. You know what you're supposed to be doing in crisis. You're trained to live in crisis. Right. I mean, that's part of the military thing, is you're trained to live in crisis, to always be ready to fight.
Yeah.
Then you stop.
Yeah.
I mean, I see this in a simpler way in like college ministries where, college ministries tend to be really rah, gung ho. You're doing your thing. You're going on your mission trip. Yeah. You're doing your intense worship thing. You're all about school and your ministry.
And then you get out. And how many of those folks who were very involved in college just drift?
They do, because they come to church and church moves slow. And we've talked about this before on podcasts, but and really the big fault of churches is that they don't really articulate what they're doing and then show how it's happening and then how you can be part of it. And so, that's you're just like, well, what are you guys doing? What do you mean?
Yeah.
What's the thing you're doing? There's also, what is it? Energy is wasted on the young, or whatever it is.
Right. But there's something to youthful folks. I mean, that was one of the things we had.
Yes, youth is wasted on the young.
One of the things we had going for us, and I think this is something that, it makes me think about our church in general. On this trip, we had Tabitha was with us, who was the eldest of us. And
how old is Tabitha?
So don't have the exact age, but she's 40s.
Okay.
So we're, and then I'm, next it was me clocking in at 38 now.
You're an old guy.
And then we had Derek, who actually is he's a Marine Corps guy who's now an airplane mechanic.
Okay.
But this guy, so in his early 30s, but he has the energy of a 17-year-old. So you can kind of put him in both categories.
All right.
And then we had John Simon, who is, he's still 28, but not so much. Not that he doesn't have energy, but he doesn't have that like rah side of him.
Right.
And then we had Abby, who is 21. So, and she is just there's still like college ministry stuff, and like was just so excited to be there. So when you put it all together, we had like just youthful exuberance. I mean, I think every cheeseburger we had, Abby declared was the best cheeseburger she's ever had in her life on this trip. And there's just something just a smile at, we're all tired, and she goes, oh, this is the best cheeseburger. Yeah. And we all just kind of like start laughing. It did something for us. And then Derek was like, there was this great moment where Derek had been given a chainsaw that we didn't bring with us, but he kind of figured out how to fire it up and started cutting at this tree, and he just went ballistic on the tree. He was just going crazy, and I was in there with like a big sawzall, and he's in there with the chainsaw, and he comes to John. He says, "John, here, do you want to do this for a while?" And John goes, "No, I have never used a chainsaw, and I'm not about to learn right now." And Derek went, "All right," and he just went back to it. And so later, John and I were driving. He's like, "Dude, I can't believe he wanted me to use the chainsaw. I've never used a chainsaw." I said, "Do you realize Derek had never used a chainsaw?" He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, that was his first time." But he has this just like tenacity for everything that it doesn't matter. But then John's hesitancy also like probably kept us out of a couple things. Like he gave us a little like, he tempered it. Right. He sort of, right. And then Tabitha had like the like, okay, been there all throughout the world and done so many things, and kind of just this like steadiness of like, not shocked, not, level headed. She gave the report at the church. So good, so balanced, relatable to everybody. Yeah. Anyway, it was cool to see, but part of that was that there's like this youthful oomph that I didn't have, and John didn't have, and Tabitha didn't have, but we had two people on the team who did, and it inspired us.
Yeah.
And so
cool.
I wish in the church it wasn't just like when you're in college you have, you're with other college people who have this gusto, and then when you're older in church you don't. I mean, I wish that we were all, I wish we were all stuffed onto teams like we were on this trip more often. It really helped.
It does. I think the other thing is, though, we live in a culture that's looking for that experience.
Yeah.
And not in the ritual and the rhythm.
Sure.
And I think we kind of have either the search for the experience or the search for the numb out.
Yeah.
And not the like having what you're talking about be part of the rhythm, living out a very, a disciplined, focused life. All those things, like they're not part of, we're trying to escape those two in their appropriate spaces, I think.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you at all. I think that being able to respond to something like this in a faithful, healthy way comes from that rhythmed life. Like if you were just always running all over the world,
then it doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to say. I really enjoyed your story, and I mean, I'm good.
Okay,
I'm good today. I don't know if you have any else you want to say. I mean, I think this is a good podcast.
Yeah, no, I'm good too.
Give people a little picture into.
The great thing is I show up tired, and then you ended up getting quite the story from me, didn't you?
Yeah, no, it's good.
Doesn't really.
Well, just so people know, you texted me last night, and I just didn't have anything to talk about.
Yeah,
I feel like there's a lot going on in the world, but you and I we've really hacked a lot of those things up over the last few months, and I'm sure that there'll be more to talk about next week, but
there always is.
It's just I'm kind of mellow, and
I think I'm getting that when Eric is wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and happy, he just doesn't have a lot to say.
I don't.
And when he's tired and grumpy, oh boy.
Yeah, you better watch out.
Yeah.
He's got a lot to say.
Yeah.
You got to operate tired and grumpy.
I saw this video of a bear taking down a elk in Yellowstone, I think.
Okay.
And I think that's, how you see those cute little pictures of bears playing and rubbing. That's you now.
Right. I'm the cute little bear.
But when you're hungry,
like
you're going to take down a male elk.
Oh, yeah.
So there you go.
That's me.